Hello, my name's Florence. Welcome to the theobspod. I'm an NHS obstetrician, hoping to share some thoughts and experiences about my working life. Perhaps you enjoy Call the Midwife, maybe birth fascinates you, or you're simply curious about what exactly an obstetrician is. You might be pregnant and preparing for birth. Perhaps you work in maternity and want to know what makes your obstetric colleagues tick, or you want some fresh ideas and inspiration. Whichever of these is the case, and for that matter, anyone else that's interested, the theobspod is for you. Episode 116, Conference. This week, I'm off to a conference. I'm really looking forward to it. But over the years, it's taken quite a bit of trial and error to know what sort of conferences to go to and what not. So I thought I'd share my thoughts about conferences. I think looking from the outside, people see conferences as one big jolly. You get to go away somewhere fancy, maybe visit a foreign country, all in the name of work, in inverted commas. Somehow, I've never managed to figure those sorts of conferences out. Maybe it's because I'm not an academic. I'm not publishing multiple research papers. But for me, a conference is part of the lifelong learning expected of a doctor. We have to collect a certain number of CPD points. CPD standing for Continuing Professional Development. As an obstetrician, I have to collect 50 points a year. That might not sound very much, but it does when you look at the fact that a point is roughly approximate to an hour. Some of these points will be collected by attending local meetings, reviewing our own quality improvement, or our perinatal morbidity and mortality meetings, for example. Some of these points will be accrued by reading literature, often reviews and updates. And my college has a handy MCQ system, multiple choice question system, so that the obstetrician and gynaecologist comes out. The articles usually give us some great updates on some particular topics that you might feel rusty on or a little bit out of date. And once you've read the article, you can do the multiple choice questions. And if you score over 70%, you get a point. But alongside these things, there's an expectation of attending conferences. And indeed, a couple of conferences are actually mandatory to attend once in a 5-year accreditation cycle. Cost is a big issue when it comes to conferences. Let's face it, they're big business. One of the key things in the pandemic was a massive loss of income for people running face-to-face conferences. Don't get me wrong, as doctors in the NHS, we're very lucky. We're allowed 30 days study leave over a 3-year period, and this is paid leave. So theoretically, I could take 10 days of study leave every year. But I don't know of a single person who actually manages that. Why is that? Well, study leave is one thing, being allowed the time off work to attend something. But paying for the conference itself is quite another thing. And yes, again, we're very lucky. As a consultant in the NHS, we have an allowance of £500 expenses per year. Sounds great, doesn't it? And I know, in comparison with my midwifery colleagues, this is incredible. They get very little or no money. to attend courses, unless it's endorsed by management and they've been particularly selected to attend. But £500 may not even stretch to a single day. For me, many of the courses and things I attend are at the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. And it's not their fault, but I can tell you that a course for one day can end up costing between £350 and £400. And some of the 2-day compulsory courses for our junior doctors, specialty trainees, cost over £700. Then you've got the cost of attending and presenting. If you put in an abstract, you're trying to build your career, you're trying to get things on your CV, you're trying to present your work, whether that might be quality improvement or research. Maybe you've entered a poster, or maybe you've put in for a presentation. Imagine the excitement. Your poster or presentation is accepted. Absolutely amazing. But then you discover the cost. The cost is you have to attend the meeting. And of course you want to attend the meeting, but you may have to fund attending the meeting, and that can be very challenging. So unless you're internationally acclaimed academic with huge pots of research money that you can use to fund your department to go to this and that and the other conference, or you're at the top of your game and you're an amazing invited plenary speaker, conferences, you're going to be out of pocket. Usually when I attend a conference, I pay for it myself. I chalk it up to the fact that as doctors, we have a responsibility to our patients to keep ourselves up to date. So if you're going to spend your cash, it's really important to feel it's money well spent. I've learned over the years what works for me. I've been to 1 or 2 gigantic mega conferences. These have huge conference centres with massive plenary, almost like stadia, with row upon row of chairs, cavernous halls. And then many of the sessions are divided into numerous streams, providing me with infinite choice about what to go to. It's almost too much choice. I end up feeling an insignificant small dot in comparison to the great and the good who are imparting their wisdom from the stage. It can feel too distant. And for me, it can feel far too similar to being back at school. Which clique are you in? Will anyone talk to me? Will I be able to ask questions? What will I get out of it? In turn, the scientific paper conferences are too esoteric and academic for me, far too removed from the day-to-day clinical. Maybe it's just my personality type. I can't get my brain round them. I find them too academic and intimidating. And the fact that the knowledge they impart might not filter down and be implemented and change practice for many years, I find too difficult. Then there's the issue of virtual versus face-to-face. The pandemic has brought us the benefits of virtual conferences. Amazing benefits of no travel and ability to attend without childcare, for example, or without leaving your house. It's been wonderful to see people on Twitter commenting on conferences that they're attending with a baby on their knee. It's much more practical for busy working parents or for others with caring responsibilities. But I find these conferences very difficult. I've attended both as an attendee, when I just feel almost as if I'm watching the television. There's very little interaction and it's almost monotonous and difficult to hold my attention than when you've made the effort to get up, get out the door, travel somewhere. But I've also presented as a speaker at virtual conferences. And as a speaker, it's awful. It feels like there's no one listening. There's no one there. There's no connection. All you can see is your face and your presentation. I've given presentations and felt like I can see the numbers of people that are listening, but I get nothing back. I'm a person that when I'm speaking, I like to connect with my audience. I might go off on a slight tangent. It helps when I see them nodding, smiling, shaking their heads, responding to what I'm saying. When it's on a screen and it's virtual, I find it very difficult to be interesting, keep animated, connect and engage my audience. Some conferences you really feel make a difference. My favourite conferences for this are the Embrace conferences. They usually have excellent speakers and summarise perinatal morbidity and mortality and maternal mortality findings with clear recommendations as to what we should do. They're always good value. I always learn something. I always feel there's something to take back to my unit. Because yes, part of going to the conference is what you take back with you. What do you learn and convey back to your colleagues? For me, attending those conferences where they present the findings, yes, it's the same as the written report that I can read or download online. But hearing it presented, hearing the speakers, for me, that's a much more accessible way of absorbing the information than reading a written document. My favourite conference is the one that I'm going to this week. I've discovered I like a small conference, a conference that enables me to mingle with others sharing the same challenges, something that gives me really practical ideas, the ability to network, discuss what solutions have been found elsewhere. This conference I find invigorating, sending me back to work with my mojo restored if I've been jaded, ideas ignited, thoughts to share with colleagues, and new connections made. So what is this conference that I'm going to? It's the British Intrapartum Care Society Conference. A few years ago, we realised that there wasn't a good network, a good connection for those leading intrapartum care, labour wards up and down the country. There were many specialised societies for other areas of obstetrics and gynecology, but there was nothing for intrapartum care, something that a group of us were passionate about. It started small. It started as the London Labour Wards Lead meeting, set up by Louise Page and a couple of other London colleagues. Enthusiastically, our first meeting was held in a kind of pub restaurant. But it grew. Soon people started to realise what was going on in London and that we were networking. And that grew to be a bit of a national Labour Ward Leads network. And then the decision was taken. We really ought to become a formal, recognised society. I'm very grateful to my colleagues who stepped up and led the formation of this society in 2018. It's been a breath of fresh air. It brings together obstetricians, midwives, nurses, maternity voices. Anyone interested in intrapartum care is welcomed. From the get-go, they've had a keen desire to put women at the centre of everything they do. I was privileged to be a speaker at the inaugural conference. It was a one-day affair, but it was quickly realised that it was so beneficial, it needed to be bigger. The second conference was held in Leicester at the National Space Centre. And we talked all things labour ward, surrounded by rockets. It was simultaneously strange, but exciting. It felt energising. It was fun. And then COVID came, the pandemic, and things went online, and we didn't have a conference. So there were some great webinars held in its place. But I'm thrilled to be back, going back to the BICS conference. So what's my zesty bit? My zesty bit is when you're down, when you're stale, when you're struggling to remember why you came into the profession you're in, or why you're trying to do the work you're doing, or why you're trying to help maternity services improve. Get back to what drove you there. And if, as for me, that's chatting with and exchanging ideas with other people and thinking what's new and lighting that fire again, then go for it. Think about what sort of conference might do that for you. How best to spend your money to really invigorate and re-enthuse yourself. Because there are so many networks, conferences and organisations on offer. And if you haven't already taken a look at the British Intrapartum Care Society, I would urge you to do it. It's not just the conference. We email each other questions and queries throughout the year, and there are also webinars and discussions that you can get involved in. So for anyone with an interest in intrapartum care, it's well worth looking it up. I very much hope you found this episode of the theobspod interesting. If you have, it'd be fantastic if you could subscribe, rate and review on whatever platform you find your podcasts, as well as recommending the theobspod to anyone you think might find it interesting. There's also tons of episodes to explore in my back catalogue, from clinical topics, my career and journey as an obstetrician, and life in the NHS more generally. I'd like to assure women I care for that I take confidentiality very seriously and take great care not to use any patient identifiable information unless I have expressly asked the permission of the person involved on that rare occasion when it's been absolutely necessary. If you found this episode interesting and want to explore the subject a little more deeply, don't forget to take a look at the programme notes where I've attached some links. If you want to get in touch to suggest topics for future episodes, you can find me at theobspod on Twitter and Instagram, and you can email me theobspod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.